distillation and show you some of the equipment that we use just for small plot testing. This is by no means equipment that you can make multiple batches of alcohol with. It's simply equipment that we test certain crops with or sugar concentrations with. We can make an alcohol with this distillation system, but it doesn't push out a lot of quantity, okay? So, once our product, our yeast has turned our sugar into alcohol and we've measured with our hydrometer to determine that our fermentation is complete, we would simply put our product into a cooker, some sort of cooker, okay? This can be a hot water heater, it can be a stainless steel, it can be glass. It just depends on the outcome. If you are going to make alcohol to drink, then it needs to be copper or glass, okay? With no plastic, okay? We have a glass container that's just a small cooker. It holds about 3 liters of material. We have a column, and this column simply just attaches our cooker to our steel. What happens during distillation, when this liquid begins to boil, and it has different boiling temperatures depending on what's the sugar concentration in the liquid that you have within your cooker, vapors will rise through this column and fall, and rise and fall, and rise until they get hot enough and pure enough to come up the pipe and drop down through the tube. So the vapor will continue through the tube into this distillation column here. Now, I want to explain our distillation column just a little bit because it's a bit different than most distillation columns that you'll find in a laboratory. This is a Charles 803 distillation still. It has about an 8-inch area here in the bottom where these vapors will begin to go into from the cooker, and it's full of marbles. So it's kind of like this column here. It's just a packed column with marbles. Now what this allows the vapors to do, as the vapors rise from the cooker, as it gets hot enough to do so and create vapors, the vapors rise into the distillation column. They'll continue to rise and fall, and rise and fall, and rise and fall, until they become pure enough to rise to the next stage of the column, which has a tube in it, a copper tube, that water runs through, okay? And the water runs through and it cools the vapors, and they rise and fall, and they rise and fall, and they rise and fall, until they become really pure vapors, and they can go up to the top condenser, okay? The condenser also has cool water running through copper tubes, and as the vapors rise in here, the cool water cools them off, and the alcohol drops down into the high-proof alcohol outlet, into our outlet. So that's basically how this still works. With one run from our still, with a proper fermented product, we can get 180 proof alcohol from one run, because the vapors rise and fall until they become pure enough to rise to the condenser at the top, where the cool water cools down the vapors and turns them into liquids and drop them through the high-proof alcohol port. So that's basically how the distillation column works. It's copper. We have it wrapped with insulation tape so that it doesn't take it quite as long to heat up. Say if we're in the shop and it's cold and we don't have a heater, what's going to happen is, as the vapors get hot in the cooker and they begin to come down into the marble area here and rise and fall, as they rise and fall and get up here, they'll hit the temperature gauge. Now when this temperature gauge starts rising up close to 172 or 75, then we'll turn the cold water on and start letting the cold water run through the tubes and condense the vapors more, okay? But we can't turn the water on until we reach a certain temperature, or our column will never get hot. So the column has to get to a certain temperature before you can turn the water on and begin the condensation process. And then this is the high alcohol port here. This is our low alcohol output port here. And this basically, as the vapors rise and fall, the vapors that never really make it to the top as pure vapors will come out the low alcohol port. This will be about 120 proof alcohol, which you can rerun again in your next batch if you wish to, and continue to try to pull out the good alcohol vapors that can go to the top and make you a really high proof alcohol. The distillation will continue as long as the still holds between 175 and 178 degrees Fahrenheit. When distillation is complete, the temperature will spike immediately to almost the boiling point of water. And when that happens, you know that your distillation, you have removed all the alcohol vapors that you can possibly remove from whatever apparatus you have at that time. So when that temperature spikes above 178 and it goes really quickly to around 212, your distillation is through and you can turn off your equipment.